We're about to begin the main part of this evening, which is our speakers. Our first speaker, of course, will be Paul McKeever. Now, many of you know Freedom Party. Freedom Party of Ontario is the only political party in this province which values reality over myth, reason over irrationality, fact over fiction, truth over falsehood, and science over superstition. And here to give Freedom Party's stance on climate change and the politics surrounding it is Freedom Party's leader, Paul McKeever.
Thank you, Robert. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of tonight's dinner is embracing climate change. And the reason for that theme should be no mystery to anybody in Ontario who's paying for an electricity bill these days. Whether it's the Liberal cap-and-trade plan, or the progressive Conservative new price on carbon, whether it's rising electricity transmission costs, or gasoline price hikes, we're being told that we must pay more, and more, and more. Now, I certainly want to say a few words about the politics of climate change and Freedom Party's particular stand on the climate and energy. But I first want to submit to you that rising energy prices, as horrible and as oppressive as they are just one symptom of a much bigger disease. It's a disease affecting the minds of everyone in this room, but also the minds of everybody living in Ontario right now. So to see what I mean, I want you to think for a moment about your own happiness. As you know, Freedom Party believes that the government should regard the purpose of each person's life to be the achievement of his or her own happiness, right here, at all times, in Ontario, for you. But what do I mean when I say happiness? Where does this happiness come from? Well, I submit to you that your own happiness is the result of saying and doing the things that in the long run will bring you the things upon which your happiness depends. And I'm not just talking about material things like money in your home, but also spiritual things like love and admiration. Now, of course, different people value things differently depending on their personal tastes and their situations. One person may love the taste of liver and onions, and the next person may just say, "Oof, can't stand the taste of that." A runner may value a first place gold medal more than a jug of water, but a person who's dying of thirst would gladly give away his medal for even just a mouthful of water. A scientist might prefer to buy a new microscope rather than buy a new pair of designer shoes, until she decides it's time to dress to impress, at which point she might change her values and say, "I think I'll buy the shoes right now and wait on the microscope." We all value things differently depending on our personal tastes and situation. But it's the earning of these things, not the values themselves, that bring a person happiness. For example, if that runner were to win the gold first place medal by cheating, it would bring him no happiness. Every time a person went to him and said, "Wow, you're that guy who won the medal," he wouldn't be filled with pride and happiness. He'd be filled with guilt and shame because he didn't earn that medal. He'd be afraid, in fact, that someone might find out. His decision to cheat would, in fact, have cheated him of the achievement of happiness. So it's not enough just to have that medal or to have values. We need to earn them. Now, ask yourself this. What is the one thing you absolutely need if you were to have any hope of achieving your own happiness? I submit to you that the one absolutely necessary and irreplaceable thing that you need to have is control. Control over your own life, your own liberty, your own property. And by control, I mean that you must be the person who determines what will be done with your life, liberty, and property. Only you can know what you value. So you must be the person who chooses what values to pursue. Your happiness can be earned only by your own efforts. So it has to be you who decides to make those efforts, not somebody else. If somebody forces you to pursue some value that you haven't chosen, neither the pursuit nor the value will bring you any happiness. If you're denied the freedom to choose, you're denied happiness. course, the problem is that there is no shortage of people who want to take your freedom to choose away from you, who want to decide for you, who don't particularly care about your happiness. There's the people who want to take your life. We call them murderers or jihadists. There are the people who want to tell you what to do and where to do and how to do it. We call them rapists and slavers and sociology professors. There are people who want to seize and spend almost every dollar you make every year. We call them Kathleen and Patrick and what's her name. And in all those cases, the thing they want to take from you really is the role of decision maker. These people have a really backward view about the purpose of your life. And at present, one of the most high-profile examples of their backward views on such things is their response to climate change. We all know climate change exists. There has been cooling that has led to ice ages. There has been warming that has ended ice ages. The shapes and depths of land and seas have been dramatically changed over periods of climate change that have lasted thousands of years and hundreds of generations. Changes such as these have required human beings to migrate and to adapt to the effects of climate change as long as human beings have roamed the earth. But there's no evidence of an impending climate catastrophe that will result in your extinction. A few handful of Gore fans and other kooks believe that we're facing such a climate catastrophe. But if politicians were to state to the people that elected them that they are facing an extinction in their own lifetimes, the politicians would be laughed out of office. They really would. And for that reason, today's progressive politicians, including the Liberals and the Progressive Conservatives and the NDP and the Greens, they instead focus on the predicted costs of predicted climate change. And they make three main allegations of fact. They say that because every human being contributes some CO2 to the atmosphere, every human being is causing the climate to change. What they imply is that therefore we are all doing something immoral and that we must constantly earn forgiveness for the crime of breathing. They say that not everybody has the money needed to adapt to the effects of climate change and that therefore we have a duty to prevent climate change from happening. What they mean morally is that it is wrong for you to pursue your own happiness, that your lot in life is to work your fingers to the bone for strangers who aren't even trying to achieve their own happiness. What they mean politically is that it's time to seize the wealth and industrial capital of the West, the hard-earned stock seed of the West, and capitalism, to grind it up like flour and to feed it to the rest of the world in a few short-lived meals. They say that preventing climate change will be less costly than dealing with the costs of the effects of climate change. And what they mean there is that they've never told a lie. At the root of all their arguments, there is a very ugly set of beliefs about the purpose of your life and who should be making decisions concerning your life, liberty, and property. When they tell you that they're fighting climate change for future generations or to save the planet, they're telling you that in their view, your purpose on this earth is not to achieve your own happiness, but to suffer for people and for things that either do not exist yet or did not elect them, the planet, for example. When they propose a new price on carbon, as Mr. Patrick Brown has, they're proposing to replace you as the person who makes decisions about the use of your property. And when they impose a cap-and-trade system, they're replacing you as the person who makes decisions about what you will do with your time and your money. In each case, they are taking away your freedom to choose the pursuit of your own happiness. These are some very, very bad people, folks, and it's time that they were sent packing. But if we're to achieve that, we must present all Ontarians with a very different view, a different approach to dealing with climate change. I'm here tonight to tell you that that approach, the Freedom Party approach to climate change, involves a view of climate change that is diametrically opposed to that of the Liberals and the PCs, the NDP and the Greens. Unlike those parties, we will advocate acceptance of the fact that we currently lack the knowledge and technology needed to fight climate change, and that the rational response to climate change is simply to adapt to its effects. You know, in the 1980s, we laughed at tabloid newspapers that claimed that the Soviets had a machine that could control the weather, cause floods and droughts, and destroy Western economies. We knew that nobody had a machine like that, and we all knew that it was nothing more than communist propaganda. That's what we called it. Yet today, our elected politicians would have us believe that with enough of your money, they can control not merely the weather, but the entire global climate with an all-powerful political thermostat. Of course, they've offered us no evidence that they actually have a Soviet-like climate machine that can control the climate and prevent floods and droughts. But they've given us ample evidence that their taxes and green energy schemes and regulations actually accomplish the destruction of Western economies better than any Soviet could have hoped would be resulting from a Russian weather machine. Like the man who tries to stop the snow by dancing in lederhosen, the Liberals, the PCs, the NDPs, and the Greens are ignoring the fact that nature, to be commanded, must be obeyed. Freedom Party will not make that mistake. Rather than spending billions of tax dollars and destroying the economy with ineffective efforts to fight climate change, a Freedom government will accept climate change as what it has always been since before the dawn of man, a metaphysical given, an inevitable fact. Instead of fighting climate change, we will adapt to its effects as and when needed. In other words, we will embrace climate change, so to speak. Instead of spending billions and destroying our economy in a doomed effort to prevent a future climate catastrophe and human extinction for which there is currently no evidence, we will spend only when necessary and affordably, and we'll only adapt to the observable effects of climate change, not to what we're predicting. For example, if a rise in water levels threatens to move water over land, we will, if appropriate, build up the land, just like we have done for decades with the shoreline of Lake Ontario in Toronto. There, land and man-made structures can be found where only lake existed before. It's true. We'll put an end to governmental efforts to fight climate change. We will continue to advocate instead the free market solutions that will bring down energy prices, lower or eliminate production taxes, and put an end to the cronyism that allows a handful of politically connected people to profit from sending other Ontario residents into energy poverty. And at all times, we will remember that the whole purpose of government is to ensure that nobody, especially not the government, takes from you your power to choose, takes from you the freedom you have to pursue your own happiness. Thank you.